So anyone who's been watching this channel for a while knows that I like to talk about math. I made a few videos about the formulas behind the most recent game, SMT5 Vengeance, and I'll probably do a few more, but there's always been one thing about this game that really bugged me, and it's about two of the series' most unique skills. Yes, I'm referring to Charge and Concentrate, and why, in this game specifically, they're just terrible. For the few of you who aren't aware, Charge and Concentrate both provide the user with a temporary buff. The next time they make an attack that uses a specific stat, Strength for Charge, Magic for Concentrate, that attack receives a bonus to its damage. Specifically, this boost has been 250% damage, but it does vary from time to time. Charge was introduced in Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne as Focus before it was renamed Power Charge in Digital Devil Saga 1, which also gave us the magic equivalent in Mind Charge. These would be their names until SMT4 shortened Power Charge to Charge and renamed Mind Charge to Concentrate. These skills have always been fantastic. Since they usually cost less MP than the spell they're boosting, they're a great way to boost your MP economy and, when the boost is more than double, increase your overall damage. This is especially true in the Persona games, where physical skills cost HP instead of MP. So Charge lets physical units spend MP to get 2 attacks worth of damage, rather than spending HP twice. And even in games where the damage boost is less than or equal to double, which up until 2021 was only Persona 3 FES and Persona 5 Strikers, the skills were still good as economy boosters. And SMT5, along with its remake, Vengeance, did the same thing. Now, before we really get into it, in the final boss against Lucifer in this game, he says,
"One must consider true freedom."
And nowadays, your privacy online is less and less free every day. Every video you watch, every game you play, every embarrassing thing you totally didn't search for at all of that is written down by your ISP and sold to people you probably don't want to have it. The government, advertisers, AI overlords, Babylonian demons, your mom. In 24 hours, everyone will know what you've done. If you'd like some of that freedom back, let me introduce you to ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is a lot like that brick wall Squidward made to keep SpongeBob out. It encrypts your internet traffic and masks your IP address so that nobody can log your data. Your ISP can't sell to advertisers, you won't get your info doxed by any hackers, you avoid that awkward conversation with your mom, and so on. Plus, you can set your masked IP to be in one of over 100 countries, allow you to access content not available where you live. Now, you don't need to have Netflix in Japan in order to watch the live-action Death Note, or the second live-action Death Note, or the third live-action. Find out how you can get up to 4 extra months by clicking the link in the description box below or scanning the QR code. And if you don't like it, just give it back. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee for first-time users. Thank you to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video, and now, let's get back to the show. By the way, I'll be referring to both versions of SMT5 as SMT5. So, similar to FES, SMT5 chose to set the damage bonus to 80%, or 1.8, which solidifies the skills as economy boosters, since if we wanted to do more damage, we could just use the attack twice. For the same reason, they gave both skills the lowest MP cost they've had in years, starting at 10 MP and going as low as 5 with maximum skill potential. And they do their job pretty well. Let's say the Nahobino uses Ruinous Thunder, one of his unique spells. It costs 20 MP and hits one target with a 200 base power electric attack. If we cast it twice, we spend 40 MP to deal 400 powers worth of damage. But if we replace the first one with Concentrate, now we only spend 30 MP for 380 power. In exchange for 10% less damage, we are spending 25% less MP. In longer fights where running out of MP is a genuine concern, this can be the difference between having enough MP and needing to heal. Now, you can argue whether or not a skill that says it increases damage should be an economy skill. I personally think they should be damage focused, but at the end of the day, what's most important is that the skills do what they're trying to do. And in that regard, I would say they succeed. Charge and Concentrate greatly reduce the amount of MP you spend at the cost of 10% of your total damage. So, just like Persona 3 and P5 Strikers before it, SMT5 succeeds at having Charge and Concentrate act as economy options. Right? Well, not quite. A skill succeeding at what it wants to do is only half the battle. It also matters whether or not the skill is worth using at all. There are many reasons why a skill might not be worth using, but I'd like to highlight 2 in particular. Firstly, a skill might not be worth using if there's another skill that's better in every way, and second, a skill might not be worth using if you lose something else for using the skill. For the first point, let's compare Ruinous Thunder to Zionga. Zionga is extremely similar to Ruinous Thunder, but it's only 160 power. Since Ruinous Thunder is 200, Zionga might seem like a useless skill on paper. But remember, Ruinous Thunder is exclusive to the Nahobino, the main character. None of your demons can use it, so while Zionga is useless to you, it's still perfectly fine for your allies. When a skill becomes available also matters. That's why Zionga doesn't clash with Zio. One is an early game pick, the other acts as an upgrade to it. Only when a skill fulfills the same role for all characters and is available at roughly the same time does it truly mean one skill is outclassed. And it's in this way that Charge and Concentrate fail. Since the charge skills are intended as economy boosters, we must weigh them against other economy boosters. We only have 8 skill slots after all. If there is a better option, either because it's stronger or achieves the same goal more efficiently, that devalues the charge skills by a lot. Allow me to introduce you to Restore and High Restore. Restore is a passive that recovers 10 MP when the unit hits an enemy's weakness or lands a critical hit. Meanwhile, High Restore recovers 20 MP, and yes, they can be stacked. Now, it might seem like these skills have an entirely different purpose. The charge skills boost economy whenever you cast them, but the restore skills only work when critting or hitting a weakness. However, we also have to consider the overall design of Shin Megami Tensei 5. Crit builds are debatably the strongest they've ever been. You start the game with a move that guarantees critical hits for a turn, plus there are multiple attacks that always crit, multiple skills that guarantee other attacks will crit, skills that boost the critical rate of other skills, and so on. It is alarmingly easy to create a situation where all of your attacks will be critical hits. And magic builds aren't left in the dust either. SMT5 is a very weakness-focused game. Most bosses have some form of weakness to exploit, and the ones that don't are often susceptible to critical hits. And since SMT5 lets you give demons whatever skills you want via Essence Fusion, it's very easy to walk into a boss fight, see what skills it has, die, then change your party or skills around to exploit its weaknesses or just crit it to death. If you're playing the game correctly, the restore skills are going to trigger a lot, which means they'll be saving more MP than the charge skills ever could, and without reducing your damage. Take our Ruminous Thunder example. With Concentrate, we hit 380 power for a cost of 30 MP. With Restore and hitting a weakness, casting the spell twice now hits for 400 power and only costs 20 MP. Compared to Restore, Concentrate is costing us MP. And if we use High Restore instead, Ruminous Thunder is literally free. And if we use both, it costs negative MP. Doing the math on every attack in the game, Restore beats the charge skills if the boosted attack costs less than 30 MP, which is every attack up to the heavy damage single target spells like Agidyne. High Restore wins if the cost is less than 50, which covers the heavy all target spells and the severe single target spells like Agibarion, and both combined win up to 70 MP, which covers everything below severe all target. However, we haven't factored in skill potential yet. While it's worked differently over the years, in SMT5, skill potential increases the power and decreases the cost of spells of a given element. At max potential, you only pay 60% of the spell's base cost, though the game usually subtracts 1 from that due to some coding weirdness. This obviously affects expensive spells more than cheap ones, but even cheaper attacks like Ruminous Thunder go from 20 to 11. Accounting for the damage boost and cost reduction from potential, Concentrate into Ruminous Thunder becomes 558 power for 16 MP, whereas Restore is 620 with a cost of 2. And High Restore now goes negative by itself. And sure, not every demon is going to have maximum potential for every skill, but you can raise their positive potentials using items, and the Nahobino will have everything maxed out by the end of the game anyway. This changes the metrics. If everything is at max potential, Restore now beats the charge skills if the attack costs less than 25 MP, which now includes the heavy damage single target spells. High Restore wins if it costs less than 45, which covers most severe all target spells except Light and Dark, and both combined win if it costs less than 65, with 65 being a tie. This now includes Fire of Sinai, Violent Rage, Javelin Rain, Deathlust, Madness Glint, Moonlight Frost, and, counting ties, Babylon Goblet. When we factor in potential, which with how easy it is to max out, we kinda have to, the Restore passives eclipse Charge and Concentrate wholly and entirely. But wait, I hear you say, you're missing the obvious solution. Just use all 3. And sure, if we'll use all 3 moves, we have the greatest MP economy possible. However, now we're using almost half of our available skill slots for MP conservation. So if you feel the need to do this, I really question why you need so many economy skills. Now, with all that being said, I mentioned all of that to a bunch of people in a Discord call on SMT Motto Zephyr's Discord server, and while everyone generally agreed, Deus brought up that Charge and Concentrate were particularly useful if you use them right before a turn where you would go for a Mogatoki critical.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well made.
Since a Mogatoki critical guarantees critical hits, the combined multipliers result in more damage than just attacking. This gives these skills a genuine use case. They're not damage or economy skills, they're combo skills. This also recontextualizes running them alongside Restore. Now, instead of running multiple economy skills, we're making our big combo turns cheaper. Setting up your team for a big combo with huge payoff is one of the game's main strategies, so a skill that increases that payoff can be a nice thing to have. Given it's only a 4% damage increase, so whether or not you feel that's worth a skill slot is up to you, but at the end of the day, this is a genuine use case, so I thought it was worth mentioning. That said, my second point in my opinion is the main issue, because it's not about what little we gain from Charge and Concentrate, it's what we lose by using it. See, Charge and Concentrate aren't the only charge skills in the game anymore. Critical Aura returns from SMT4 Apocalypse, guaranteeing the next strength-based attack will hit and will crit. But SMT5 added a few new options: Impaler's Animus, and Donum Gladi and Donum Magicii. Impaler's Animus costs 50 MP and provides the next attack a 30% bonus, as well as allowing it to ignore damage resistances. In the original SMT5, it was actually an 80% bonus, the same as Charge and Concentrate, which just made it a direct upgrade. Meanwhile, the Donum skills, Gladi for Strength, Magicii for Magic, cost 40 MP, 23 with Potential, and can be applied to an allied target to give the next applicable attack a 50% damage boost. Even with the nerf Animus got, all these skills have their own use cases. Animus is an emergency button. If you get into a fight you weren't ready for and the enemy resists or is immune to all of your attacks, Animus allows you to still get something done. Meanwhile, the Donum skills let you use someone else's action to increase your damage. Fantastic on demons that focus on support. Now we're not sacrificing the attacker's action for a boost, we're sacrificing the action of someone that likely would have dealt less damage than that 50% boost provides. Also worth pointing out, charge skills do not stack in this game. In the SMT4 games they could, and while in Apocalypse that only meant critical aura stacked with charge, in the original SMT4, both Charge and Concentrate could be stacked with Dark Energy and Spirit Focus, two DLC skills that provided a 300% boost. Combined, the next attack dealt 750% of its usual damage. Atlas probably wanted to avoid that, and rightfully so they changed it for SMT5. And while I understand the decision, it does make Charge and Concentrate difficult to use alongside Critical Aura, Animus, or the Donum skills. And to make matters even worse, Vengeance added a new charge skill, and it's kind of a big one. In the game's new story route, The Canon of Vengeance, you unlock Omnipotent Succession, a Magatsuhi skill that grants a special charge effect. With Succession, the next attack the Nahobino makes will be repeated 3 times at no additional cost. Since this is a charge effect, using it will remove any other charge effects you already had on. And the reverse is also true. Using any of the charge skills will cause it to replace Succession. And while this is a knock on every charge skill, not just Charge and Concentrate, it kinda makes the fact that Charge and Concentrate also conflict with the much better Animus and Donum skills feel even worse. And to rub salt in the wound, Succession also synergizes with the Restore passives. While attacks that hit multiple times only trigger the Restore passives once, Omnipotent Succession literally uses the move again, and each use can trigger Restore. Without hyperbole, if you have both Restore passives and combine Omnipotent Succession with a Mogatoki critical, every skill becomes completely free. Even Gaia Rage from the Demi-Fiend's Essence, which costs 170 MP at base or 101 at max potential, Omnipotent Succession heals 30 MP 4 times for a total cost of -19. Can't get economy like that with Charge. At the end of the day, Charge and Concentrate, the two skills that defined the concept, are the only ones left without a place. They're not an emergency button like Animus, they're not a support tool like the Donum skills, they're worse at their job than passives that don't sacrifice damage and turn economy, and they butt heads with every other charge skill that does something better. It's a complicated issue with a lot of details, but Charge and Concentrate are just almost never worth using. So, how do we fix that? I don't like videos where the person is just bitching without providing any kind of solution, so I thought about it and I came up with 3 possible solutions. Option 1, remove the Restore passives. I'm not a fan of this personally, I tend to be a gimme more options kind of guy, but if I'm being objective, how good of an idea this is depends on the combat design of future games. If it's like SMT Nocturne, where crits are entirely chance-based and more than 60% of the game's bosses have no weaknesses, then Restore and High Restore aren't doing much. The combat isn't structured in a way that complements those skills. Meanwhile, in a game like SMT5, the Restore passives directly incentivize you to play the game the way it wants to be played, going for crits and striking weaknesses. This might seem obvious, like the skills work in the games they were made for, no shit. But if we swap Nocturne and 5 for, say, SMT4 and 4 Apocalypse, I care a lot more about Restore in Apocalypse than in base 4, since Apocalypse is also very weakness-based, whereas 4 is closer to Nocturne. The way the game is designed matters. But still, less options is less options, so I prefer they go with a different solution. Such as option 2, let charge skills stack again. Okay, hear me out. The reason charge skills stacking was dumb in SMT4 was because we had 2 options, charge and charge 2 electric boogaloo. Yeah, no shit, that's broken. We were dealing nearly 8 turns of damage in 3 turns time. You fully buff yourself and debuff the enemy and put 450 points into magic, and this shit one-shots Masakato. SMT5 uses much lower numbers for its multipliers. If we stack Concentrates and Donum Magicite, we only hit a 270% boost. And adding Animus doesn't get us much further, only getting to 351%. It takes the attacker casting 2 buff spells and support from another unit to just barely get over what Dark Energy and Spirit Focus could do by themselves. That being said, this strategy risks establishing a meta, especially when we consider that stacking charge skills also applies to Omnipotent Succession. Let's take Paraselene Blur, a light element attack that hits 4 times at 150 power, effectively being power 600. Omnipotent Succession boosts it from 600 to 2400, but in the hypothetical where we could stack it with Charge, Donum Gladi, and Impaler's Animus, we would go from 2400 to 8424. While SMT5 has plenty of broken strategies, this would risk shifting the meta from setting up your team for a big combo with huge payoff into buff the main character so they can solo. So while I like charge stacking on paper, this change might be for the best. This leaves us with option 3. Just boost the modifiers again. Seriously, if charge and concentrate boosted damage by 2.5 or even 2.2, this becomes a non-issue. Yeah, the restore passive still win as economy boosters, but the charge skills are damage options again. This completely fixes the dichotomy with charge skills. Charge and concentrate let you increase your damage, Donum Gladi and Magicite let you increase an ally's damage, and Animus lets you ignore resistances. If we boosted charge and concentrate's multiplier to say 2.2, I would also boost the other skills. The Donum skills could come up to 1.8 and Animus could be 1.5, but I recognize that this is preference. You might have to tweak some numbers with some enemies, but this solves nearly every problem we've mentioned, barring the charge skills butting heads with each other, which isn't something we have to fix. Plus, it seems like this is what Atlas have chosen to do themselves. Metaphor Ari Fantasio opted for 2.2, and Persona 3 Reload went for 2.3. So, if we get charge skills as damage boosters in the future, it'll most likely be around those numbers. Personally, I think this is for the best, but I'm curious what you think. I proposed 3 solutions, but there are no doubt more. Or do we even need to change this at all? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. Don't worry, there's gonna be more challenge runs in the future. I just want to see how you guys feel about this type of smaller stuff. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta. Special thanks to Patreon backers Sokekin, Racimi, Kirara, Dylan Toomey, Hound, Mingquan Tai, Cerulean Mimic, and Shiny Blade. And to YouTube members Dawn Shimmer, Ryoko Strifer, Axel Ryman, 0132132, Kitasan Crimson, Minrod Vills the Night Gamer, Shadow Arrow Ace, Aura Lunia, Fabrizia Pignataro Nasudakatax, Oplin 124, Not D Wadler, Jaffinator 2166, Peak of the Wumpus, Hunter Regal, Shattercoin, Ray the Shade, Platinum Espresso, Agrith Dragonflame, Part-Time Prick, Kibo, Nepdimension Bun, RNS, Darkwing Spartan, Walteri, Akaya Queen Akaya, Rick Koningen, Zach Jackson, Rakro, Kenneth Brellamer Azarox the Fox, Chris the Nerd, Marcelo Sotelo, Tiv J, Spartan of Life, Kurt Kovana, Redactivism, Lolface23, Sentinel, The Piano Kid, Ayo_JPEG, Siren11, and Slapstick Comedy. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.